Hello, everyone. I thought I would review the film Megalopolis, which I just got back from seeing. Now, originally, I was not going to see it in the theater, but as some of you might know, my family's Universal vacation trip was canceled because of a hurricane. And so, as a consolation, my parents decided to take my niece and nephew to see the second Beetlejuice film, which they hadn't seen, but I had already seen it. So, I decided to see Megapolis instead, which a lot of people have been saying is an absolute disaster. A lot of the reviews have been extremely negative, which I thought, how bad can it be, given the fact that it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, which I've enjoyed some of his films, like The Godfather. I mean, the Godfather films aren't in like my top 10 favorite films. I mean, they don't move me in the way that they do a lot of people. Although I need to go back and watch them. It's been a while since I've seen them, but they're certainly great iconic films. And of course, as some of you might know, I'm not a huge fan of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, mainly because, to me, an artist can have liberty to do whatever they want if they're working with just their own source material. But if they're using source material from somewhere else, I do think they have somewhat of an obligation to stay faithful. And because the movie was branded as Bram Stoker's Dracula when it wasn't, I took some issue with it. But Francis Ford Coppola, I do think, is a very talented, great and talented filmmaker overall. And I enjoyed Apocalypse Now immensely, although it's been a while since I've seen it. But I watched Megapolis wondering, is it going to be a disaster? And to my surprise, I actually quite enjoyed the film. I think it's actually a pretty decent film. I did take issues with some things, but never before has there been such a great disparity between how I view a film and how the internet views it. There's a huge difference. I thought it was a good film for the most part. Now, I'll talk about some of the things I didn't like, and then I'll get to some of the things, all the things. There were more things that I liked about it than things that I didn't like. But the things that I didn't like is that probably my biggest issue was that I felt that Natalie Emmanuel, who was the main lead, I felt that her acting was lacking at times, that some of her line deliveries were flat, and I think they could have been better. That was probably my main issue. Everyone else was fine, though. I thought John Voight was very good. I thought he gave a very great performance, and and it was especially impressive given the fact that he's in his 80s now. But he managed to really captivate me and draw me in, and so he was definitely the highlight of the film. And and I also thought at times that the pacing could have been a little bit tighter. And some of the themes could have been woven together a little, and the storylines could have been woven together a little bit more coherently. I especially thought that the the Roman arena scene went on just a little too long. I would say that's the only time where I was bored. And there were also some scenes where they were trying to depict Roman decadence, which I understand what he was trying to do, but they tinged almost on vulgarity some for my taste. But again, it's not that big of a deal, and there weren't that many scenes, so that's not a huge complaint that I have. But there was so much about the film that I liked. Um, like, for example, I love the references to Shakespeare. There were quite a few. Uh, Adam Driver's character, of course, gave a speech from Hamlet towards the end. The Tempest was mentioned, and this film was a combination of sci-fi, film noir, and also a Roman epic. It had elements of all of that, and I think that they meshed together actually really well. And it also had elements of being a Greek tragedy, a Greek play. The acting was very stylized, and there was even narration throughout the film between the acting scenes, which often occurred in Greek tragedies. You would have a narrator, and then the characters would interact, and then the narrator would step back in and would give context to what the characters were saying. And so, if you know something about literature and Greek theater and Roman theater, you're going to get far more enjoyment out of it. And some of the dialogue I found to be very Shakespearean and very poetic, and it gave an emotional resonance to what the characters were saying. And on that level, I deeply enjoyed the film. And the film also doesn't have a specific point of view. It has very many different points of view. One point of view is that the strong man philosophy is what's going to save us. The idea that one man can conquer all. Then you have that's Adam Driver's point of view. We have the point of view of the mayor, which is about we need to go slow, we need to reform, we can't just tear down the system. Then you have the perspective of Shia LaBeouf, who's kind of the villain of the piece, who wants to kind of to uh, to take advantage of the grievances of the people in the society and basically lead them into and basically create a dictatorship, and so he kind of represents authoritarianism and control. And you have all of these different viewpoints that are vying for attention. And I thought the film really made me think. And so, yes, there are some aspects of it that one could consider to be flawed, but I would rather see a flawed film that makes me think than a polished action film where I may enjoy the action in the moment, but I'm not thinking about it after I leave. And to me, I don't think the criticism of Megalopolis is deserved, and I honestly think that it will probably be appraised in a more positive light in a few years. But there are some people who, if they don't enjoy um, a work, or if they can't understand a work of art, they will lash out and become angry because they don't understand it. Instead of blaming themselves, they'll blame the artist. Now, I'm not saying that if Megalopolis is not to your personal taste, that means you are necessarily wrong. But if you're angry and lashing out, that probably demonstrates some insecurity on your part, that people often become angry and reject. People often will show animosity towards things that they don't understand rather than trying to understand it, because that requires a certain level of intellectual humility that frankly most people lack. And so to me, I think that's why the film has been treated so poorly. But I overall quite enjoyed the film. And I will probably have to see it again sometime in the future to give a full appraisal of it, because a film like Megalopolis, you need to see more than once before you can render an official verdict. But overall, I will say that on my first viewing, I quite enjoyed the film, which was a surprise to me given how much it is hated online. But for the most part, I think the hatred is not justified.